Kalonzo Musyoka Command Center in Karen. In case you're just joining us again, before the break, Kalonzo Musyoka highlighted that the Prevention of Terrorism Act 2012 is inflaming the country. That and more. Back to you, Dibal, on what next for Kenya.
Many thanks indeed, Stanley Nyarengita there from our studios. And just as you mentioned, yes, we are here at the Stephen Kalonzo Karaoke Musyoka Command Center. And we are just looking at conference of issues as far as the current state of play in the country is concerned. Largely, as you've mentioned, also the Prevention of Torture Act that he has been in court to try and fight charges against, two Gen Zs who have been accused of terrorism acts, and we shall be looking at that as well. But I wanted just to go back to, Your Excellency, the issue that you've mentioned, very telling, that President William Ruto is a national security threat. And this is in regard to the statement that was tripping off his tongue today.
Indeed. Where
he mentioned that he's giving sort of orders for police to shoot, to maim, or to injure, shoot.
Just imagine, that President Ruto's order is to shoot on the legs. And then there's a crowd of 1,000 people. How do you aim at their legs if you're at a distance? So this is clearly an order to shoot, to kill. And now we know the person behind Murkomen's statement when he said he's acting on orders from above. So the person who was above is William Ruto himself. And this has been widely condemned as reckless, as uncalled for, as unconstitutional. In fact, I keep on saying some of these offenses are impeachable. And perhaps one thing that would shock William Ruto is because members of parliament, current parliament, 13th parliament, are beginning to smell elections around the corner. If there was an impeachment motion against William Ruto, although the current parliament, we say, is widely compromised, state captured, but it will shock him because now these members of parliament may want to redeem their future, their possibility of getting re-elected. They would impeach him because nobody wants to go down with the mistakes that William Ruto is committing. So I want to say, reiterate that because of that, he has become a risk. And yet, he's a chairman of the National Security Council. The chairman of the National Security Council. That council should tell the president that what he's doing is unconstitutional.
The president
now,
the president thinks also that the united opposition of Kenya is also a threat.
Oh, no.
He has mentioned today that this country will not be destroyed with a few people who are impatient
it is not
and who want to have a change of government using unconstitutional means.
Well,
it is not going to happen, and I want to tell them it is not going to happen. This is just reading verbatim of what he said today.
I tell you, all authoritarian leaders world over are known to use very hard language. And that is why we wonder why he's looking so angry. The united opposition has come out to say it is their constitutional right to remove a person who has failed to deliver on the electorate. In fact, Kenyans are saying, why should you people be giving us manifestos? I was famous myself when I pronounced in 2007 that this should be a 24-hour economy. But Kenyans are saying, forget all of that. What you're saying is we want the agenda we should and we believe is one term. That's the only agenda we think we believe. You can tell us after that what else you think you want to do. Because William Ruto and his team came in saying, we will help Mama Bogas. We will help youth get employment. We will make sure that we kick poverty in the teeth. But this country now, a lot of Kenyans have, I can tell you, have dropped below the poverty line. And you know the poverty line internationally described as anybody who is earning less than $1 a day. And $1 today is translated to 120 shillings, say 130 shillings. A lot of Kenyans cannot afford $1 per day. So the country that he took over from Uhuru Kenyatta, right, at least was slightly above the poverty line. Kenyans have now descended. The high cost of living itself is a problem, and he knows it. So I heard him actually complain that that's a very unfortunate statement also. He says when he took over, were all these people complaining they are without jobs? Were they employed? How can a head of state talk like that? So we think he has lost the plot, and it is the right of the opposition. It is our constitutional duty to hold his government to account. None of us in the united opposition wants to do a military coup. We don't have the capacity. We do not have the capacity to do that or cause a civilian coup unless Kenyans in their own right find they cannot bear it anymore and do a Sri Lanka type of thing. I think that's what he's afraid of. A Sri Lanka type of thing or of a Bangladesh. But those are people acting on their own, because we are saying, as he's saying, enough is enough. Every Kenyan, I can tell you today, is saying enough is enough. If there's a commonality of thought, it is what William Ruto is saying and what Kenyans are saying. So this matter will be resolved during the next election. So I want to get to a situation where we get Iebc correctly in place now, because this situation is not palatable without an independent electoral boundaries commission, which can call for elections anytime. And we think they're playing tactics about this matter, in fact. So
you think the government is really stonewalling the entire process?
We think they are.
These injunctions that are in court also could be government-sponsored?
Well, not necessarily. I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say they're government-sponsored. These are genuine Kenyans who think that some of those commissioners, we call it a William Ruto commission, but we hold the view that this commission should be in place. Even if William Ruto himself declares that he's a chairman of Iebc, we will have him lose by big margin.
But look, let's flip it a bit.
Yeah.
You look at the entire process.
Yeah.
That we've shortlisted candidates.
Yes.
Midway, you come and add 5 more candidates.
Of course. Yeah.
Isn't that also creating a spawning ground for injunction? That's what I'm asking.
That's right.
You think this is
right.
truly
Maybe
deliberate?
They did that deliberately.
They knew that. Yes, you
they may have done that
deliberately.
Remember, there were some who were accusing us of because we wanted the panel itself to look reasonable, right? And then they sponsored a fellow called Muli to go and spend all the time arguing and rushing up and down until he said, get on with it. So they got on with it. Now we have a William Ruto Iebc. Never mind. Let it be sworn and let us get on to, because that's what his advisor has now resigned, was trying to argue. Moses Kuria, saying the days are kicking by. He's trying to refer to the famous Kriegler report, said there should be an Iebc in place 2 years before the election. All right? But Kenyans will not take anything less than an election, latest by 2027.
Thank you. Right. I just want to move on to what the Speaker of the National Assembly was cautioning you about. You specifically, against aligning with Gachagua, warning that the cousin...
Which speaker?
The National Assembly, Moses Wetangula.
Moses Wetangula.
Yes.
Oh, Weta. Baba
Yes,
Roma,
yes. Warning that the cousin rhetoric could frustrate national unity.
Oh, but now, I think he should be a cousin himself. Anybody opposed to William Ruto is a cousin. All right? So I don't know what national unity is talking about. If indeed it was Weta who organized the goons to stop us from going as united opposition to Australia.
Isn't that, just giving a demarcation that, people who are not for Ruto, then they are not cousins. So in you and the spirit of fostering unity, should this sort of mantras like cousins... Kenyans are very smart. You know, because
of
it be condoned?
Years of civic education have brought Kenyan political awareness to a pedestal which is not even common in the region. Therefore, Kenyans know what you mean. It cannot, we must distinguish between political slogans and things that are
Indeed,
serious.
but this sloganeering, I think there's sometimes it could be
sloganeering is very good.
They can
we
be
are saying
very dangerous.
Komboa Kenya, for example. Wiper Patriotic Front has now come up with the slogan Komboa Kenya. All right? Komboa Kenya, if you want to be mischievous, you may want to say, oh, what are you Komboaing Kenya from? But we now know it is from people like William Ruto's administration. Okay?
But cousin
because the country is going down the drain.
It's predicated.
Everybody knows that.
It's predicated on negative ethnicity. People will assume
that
right?
negative ethnicity.
When we talk about the shareholders, what is so discernibly different with cousins?
I think you should ask whoever was accusing Rigathi about that. He explained it even to me because I had to ask him. And he said, I was actually doing the bidding of my boss. He said, you who are not Kenya Kwanza, who didn't vote for Kenya Kwanza, right, should have no business asking for development.
But it didn't really come across as that.
That was a thinking, and the matter was actually ventilated at the level of the Senate, and I think his team was able to dispel that notion.
Maybe
and people keep on saying, shareholders. Everybody knows. By the way, everybody knows if we have the political divide, there are those who belong to Kenya Kwanza and those who belong to United Opposition.
Don't you think maybe he did a sloppy job in trying to communicate that particular mantra?
I think he did well. I think he did well. He defended himself, and I don't hear much about that anymore. But the point is, right, when you say karaoke, and I'm Kalonzo, isn't that a step in the right direction? Trying to say, stop profiling communities. All right? When we say we are all cousins, anybody opposed to William Ruto, we're saying we are feeling the weight of corruption, we are feeling the weight of ethnicity, because that is what is happening, even in the recruitment.
But it has
the recruitment of forces.
Right, it has taken Gen Zs on social media to actually try and recalibrate that particular compass to where it should be. Right?
How have they said it?
With the we are all Kikuyus.
Of course. Yes, it was me who said I'm Kikuyu. All right? Okay, I'm actually Kikuyu, I'm Kamba, I'm Kikuyu, a Kalenjin, a cousin, Kalenjin. Warriors are my cousins because they're feeling the weight of William Ruto's maladministration.
Thank you. Right, I just want to drill deeper a bit and ask you as well, because you're on record saying you're in the process of leading, collecting, and documenting evidence, which you will use to build a case against William Ruto's government at the International Criminal Court. Yeah. How far are you with
these killings must stop. We are saying these killings, mass displacement.
No, my question to you is how far are you with the process of collecting and documenting and the process?
We have put in place a commission that I referred to. First of all, we must have the commission.
This is the People's Restorative Justice Commission. Yes.
Restorative Justice. Look at the case of this young man we've just been watching. Boniface Kariuki, shot on the head, all right? And by bullets, by the way, that are paid for by Kariuki's own relatives by way of paying taxes, all right? So what we are saying is we have to collect this evidence. We are collecting, that's for sure, because we have in place a commission. I referred earlier to a lady who was filming what was going on in Ngong Town. And others. I mean, Kenyans on social media, are amazing. Kenyans on social media. Let's compile all this evidence. And by the way, there are 2 or 3 ways of referring a country's leadership to the International Criminal Court. All right? One, it can be by direct referral by the state itself. We don't expect William Ruto to refer himself to the ICC. But it can also be by way of the prosecutor. Remember the case of Ocampo.
Yes.
The prosecutor himself, acting on his own volition, can also take the leadership of those people bearing the highest responsibility to the International Criminal Court. We will have to take an approach separate from that. But of course, we wouldn't want to look forward to that. I've had my own interaction with the difficulties any country would face having their own leaders at the International Criminal Court. We're also saying we will also do private prosecution.
Yeah, that's what I was asking. Why don't you prefer the local justice mechanism instead of going to...
We'll do that. But we want these people to know that no country is an island. No country. When it comes to matters, for example, human rights or the Bill of Rights, and Kenyans need to know that under Article 21 of our Constitution 2010, the whole of we literally imported into the country the Bill of Rights, internationally recognized, and that becomes part of our Kenyan law. We call it domestic law. So all the state actors, including William Ruto and other people, okay, are bound, and they should be able to, they're expected to observe these very high standards. When it comes to human rights, nobody can plead, oh, sovereign, we are a sovereign nation. That is very old, tired talk. All right?
Okay.
Things like, human rights are universal, and if you're seen to be acting in derogation of human rights, you'll be held liable.
But it's interesting, Your Excellency, you mentioning that particular case and saying that Kenya is a sovereign state, of course. You as Vice President under Iebc, you led a high-profile shuttle diplomacy.
Yes.
Across 10 African nations, the United Nations Security Council, the African Union, and your mission, lobby support for deferring Kenya's ICC cases tied to post-election violence. You defended the move in Parliament and the press, asserting it was aimed at preserving Kenyan sovereignty. What you're just mentioning right now.
Indeed. There's no contradiction.
Establishing credible local justice mechanism and ensuring fair treatment for victims and suspects. If we dial back, Your Excellency, if we dial back to that particular time, you've mentioned President William Ruto as a national security threat.
He was then.
He was then?
Even then, yeah.
Because when why were you deferring this from the Kenyan?
I was not acting in defense of William Ruto, Uhuru Kenyatta, or Major Ali that time, or Ambassador Muthaura. Remember, Sang, the team of Kenyans who were referred for prosecution before the International Criminal Court. What I was trying to do is, why don't we try them locally? And we went as far as amending the Constitution, all right, to set up a local mechanism. And then at that point, William Ruto's supporters started shouting, don't be vague, go to The Hague. Remember? And since that time, a lot has happened.
Because there was mistrust with the judicial system here in the country. By then, there was mistrust with the judicial system here in the country. By then, we were having
we must also trust
the vetting of the judges, if you may remember that particular and the climate. So people felt that the justice in this country will not engender.
Did this country then get justice? I ask you directly now. Out of saying, don't be vague, go to The Hague. What happened subsequently? That story has not left this country. Witnesses were subsequently killed. Some were found dumped bodies in Tsavo National Park, and others compromised until the International Criminal Court had to get the matter withdrawn. Not closed. Not closed. All right?
So that mission was not really achieved?
Sorry?
That mission was not really achieved?
It wasn't. It wasn't. Justice for the poor people who are displaced in parts. Remember the story of Madoadoa in the Rift Valley and others? Up to today, I believe there are Kenyans whose properties they were dispossessed of their own properties in the Rift Valley and elsewhere, and they have never gotten it back.
Well,
this is what we talk about Restorative Justice Commission. It will look into all these things.
But does it really blur the line between diplomacy and political loyalty? Given where you are with the coalition government, there was a split between you and Right Honorable Raila Odinga at that particular time, if you may remember.
Yeah, yes. I remember. I think it was Peter Nyong.
Were you on the political loyalty of the PNU Mwai Kibaki side?
No, I was the Vice President of the Republic of Kenya, all right? And acting in the best interest of the country, trying to say we want to try our nationals locally.
So this move was
we did not succeed.
A political patronage.
And the other side, ODM, on the other side, they said, oh, no. In fact, I remember I went up to the UN Security Council, and the Americans told us, point blank, if this matter comes to the floor of the UN Security Council, we will veto it. Vetoing meaning they were going to still to send these people to the ICC. At that point, we said, okay, let's go and do it locally. Okay? And we did the best. I believe justice, the cause of justice, was not properly served up to today.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
All right. Let's gravitate a little deeper now and look at church and politics.
Yeah.
And this is where I want to ask you, because I heard from the recent interview, you said leadership is deeply tied to God's calling. And your endurance in Kenya's political cauldron is proof of that. Interestingly, the Evangelicals Church believed President Ruto's candidacy was also divinely ordained. He wants to build a church at State House.
I think Ruto himself said famously he was prayed into office.
He was prayed into office.
I wonder whether that position has changed. But I can tell you this. Spirituality is very individual. We'll all, I believe, and I think a majority of believers like me, know that we shall again individually appear before the Almighty God at the time of reckoning and be able to answer, specifically. It will not be collective. And so, in their wisdom, the drafters of Constitution 2010 expressly said Kenya, there's no state religion in Kenya, all right? Believe you me.
Kenya is a secular
Even
state.
the heathens, even people who don't believe in God and other, they are part and parcel of this country. Others may want to, just like we got properly enshrined in the Constitution, the freedom to worship, whichever way you want to worship, all right? But the moment then you move like William Ruto is proposing to do, right? To put up in State House, which is a place for every Kenyan, believers, non-believers, and everybody else, okay? You put there, using your own resources. By the way, Kenyans must ask, where does Ruto get 1.2 billion shillings to build a sanctuary? I believe he wants to build an altar. And the altar can be something else, okay? Now, that is going now deeply spiritual. Now, see, we have theocracies. There are countries in the world who by their own legislation, by their own constitutions, right, have declared themselves theocracies, all right, where they think the relationship between the state and the religion are one and the same. But Kenyans have taken that along with many, many other countries. Even our colonial masters knew that although there's a Church of England, there's serious separation. And the Queen, by the way, or the King, is supposed to be the head of the Church of England. But there is serious separation, all right? So when the governor, we were colonial administration here, there was no church, Anglican church inside State House, okay? But we have today the All Saints Cathedral, for example, the Archbishop, a resident very close to State House, but never inside State House, all right? That was the colonial administration. This explains, by the way, the proximity, the centrality of the All Saints Cathedral, for example. And then, of course, you have the Holy Family Basilica, unless, of course, it is a Vatican. The Vatican, in terms of diplomacy, is recognized as a state. That's why the Pope's representative to Kenya is called the nuncio. He comes in as a fully fledged ambassador. One time, in fact, the nuncio has stayed there for so long, he was the dean of the diplomatic corps in Nairobi, in Kenya. But still, that is purely the Roman Catholic Church. So I hope William Ruto will stand guided and very quickly withdraw this dream that he has, that you can put a William Ruto sanctuary in State House.
Right.
Because it can only be as a believer wanting to do that. But what do you do with so many others? As you see a Muslim saying, okay, we also want to be allowed to put a mosque. The Hindus will be the same. All right? So what kind of confusion will that be?
Right, so pundits are actually wondering when did looting becomes the badge of faith rather than a breach of ethics? Is this maybe a fig leaf to try and siphon money, because State House is a protected area as it is? When you're talking about
can even be used for money
8,000 seater,
yeah,
who will be attending this church? Is it also a security threat to State House at the end of the day? But anyway,
the bottom line, Ainea, should be this: under the Constitution, such tremendous decisions require national conversation.
Indeed.
And that is why the idea of public participation. William Ruto should ask Kenyans, maonaji juu ya kitu hiki, juu ya jambo hili. Then you get the answer.
Indeed.
And the answer may be overwhelmingly, Mr. President, leave this out.
Right.
You respect your way of worship, just like I respect other people, but I say myself, I'm a follower of Jesus Christ of Nazareth. I'm not afraid of that. I'm not afraid of that. But I cannot put it down everybody's throat. You have to persuade them. All right?
Interesting. I was just reading a quote from Roger Williams. I think he's one of a clergy from America. And
Yes.
he said, it is against the testimony of Christ Jesus for the civil state to impose upon the souls of the people a religion.
Indeed.
Jesus never called for the sword of steel to help the sword of the spirit.
Yes.
Forced worship stinks in God's nostrils, because he was saying, I'm making no apologies, I'm making no bones about this, I shall build a church. Then, of course, people are asking and quoting, I could see some of the verses being quoted here, like 1 Chronicles 28:3, where David had the intention of building the temple for the Lord.
Yes.
And he says, God tells, this is 1 Chronicles 28:3. Now that you say also you're a firm believer, I thought maybe I should throw this in.
Yes, indeed.
God tells David that he will not be the one to build the temple because
He
is a man of war,
yeah,
and has shed much blood. And you've been talking about the blood-based government.
Indeed.
Is it proper for him to build a
They
church?
call it broad-based, but now, in the light of what has happened, the Gen Z protests, call them demonstrations, the killing, now admittedly, of about in excess of 140 Kenyans, others maimed, their bodies oozing blood,
So,
going to hospitals, Ainea. It's not just 140. This is truly a blood-based government, not broad-based. Because if they're broad-based, I've seen even Raila trying to jump out,
all right, so
call
Raila,
for something.
yes, Raila
Yeah.
is currently, this orientates to my question that I want to ask you, is calling for intergenerational national conclave.
Who will call it? Who will, I ask you, because he needs to come up with specifics.
You on record also saying that we need to have a national dialogue.
Well, I was chairman.
Why
I was
would
chairman.
we
Thank you,
need-
Ainea.
Yes.
Thank you, Ainea. I was chairman of the National Dialogue Committee, co-chair,
Yes.
with Kimani Chungwa.
Why do we need
and
another dialogue?
we listened to Kenyans. We had serious dialogue at Bomas. What happened? Lack of political good faith and will. And therefore, now, Kenyans don't want to hear of national dialogue. Kenyans want action. They want justice. They want the restorative justice. They want at least compensation for the Kenyans who have been killed and maimed. And please remember, since 2023, not a single person has been compensated, right? So somebody like Boniface Kariuki, right? We have told Justice Muturi, they should go for what in law is called exemplary damages. Exemplary. Because that video we've just seen went international, viral, and the pain of it, misuse of power. Okay, so I can tell you that this administration has failed miserably, and nobody wants to hear dialogue. The young people are saying, well, don't waste our time. Give us our country.
Yeah,
do things right. Do things right. I mean, honestly, stop corruption. Be transparent in your administration of justice. Stop killing us. Stop stop maiming us, stop invading our businesses using state-powered, empowered goons and blaming the opposition. Stop the nonsense. Stop it.
Right, so do you think also...
So that's what Kenyans want. Is that really time for dialogue? And I'm telling you that as a person, we spend a lot of time. By the way, I was acting on behalf of Raila Odinga. His co-principal was William Ruto. Did they listen? Did they listen? And do any Kenyan take anybody now, any of those two, saying we want dialogue? So I told William, my friend Raila, I told him, no. You wanted me to issue a statement, yeah? I said, no. First of all, I've not even seen what you have said. Up to today, I haven't read it. But in my mind, it is very clear. I'm very clear. This is not the time to waste Kenyans and then end up with something referendum.
So NADCO was a complete waste of time?
It looks like it was.
Assessment?
I mean, the only thing that NADCO achieved, because we drafted 9 pieces of legislation, all right? They are now struggling with CDF and something. The
GAF and the CDF.
The GAF, and they're struggling with it. The only thing that went through was the amendment to the Independent Electoral Boundaries Commission. And then see how long it has taken. Even before they brought it to the floor of the House. Demonstration of political bad faith. So, NADCO, I'm sorry to tell you.
It was a complete waste of time and a complete waste of money.
No.
And the resources.
Money, resources, I don't even remember getting anything paid out of it. But the point is this, that they missed the opportunity. That opportunity having been missed and lost because of lack of political goodwill, Kenyans want nothing other than going to the ballot, throw out this administration, put in a new administration which will listen to Kenyans. That's all they want. That's why I'm saying nobody's interested in a civilian coup or anything. We want to defeat William Ruto at the polls, soundly.
Thank you. Let me gravitate the conversation towards the Goonism and the institutionalization of Goonism in this country, as we can see it, because people are saying all these goons are state-sponsored. And this had raised concern also with the international community. We had a joint communique, that is the note of a bell that came from 12 foreign countries. Here in the country, we had, of course, the UK and the USA, amongst other 12 nations who had raised concern regarding this and justice. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs, which you've sat on that particular seat as a minister before, cautioned foreign actors against pushing narratives, as they call them, that might erode mutual respect in diplomatic relations. And just as I've mentioned, you once, having led that particular docket as a minister, how would you assess...
Twice, actually, for a total of 7+ years.
Yes. How would you assess the tone and the strategic messaging of such communications? Is this, would you call it effective diplomacy? Or could we say it is a defensive posture?
I can tell you this, Enea, without any contradiction whatsoever, in my mind, Kenya's present foreign policy is confused completely. They are at sea. They have no idea. Yeah? When we talked about that at independence, we came up with session of paper number 10 of 1965, which guided our ideological orientation during the time of the Cold War. Remember, the East and the West divide, the time of the Cold War. We took a position that we will be non-aligned. Now, non-alignment, I've told these people before, when Kenya was declared by President Biden as a non-NATO ally, that puts the countries at arm's length of Al-Shabaab and other persons. We were hit in 1998 because we were hosting only the American embassy here. But now we'll be hit as complicit because we are seen to be allies of the West, of a particular type of political arrangement or whatever, global arrangement. But that's why we say we shall remain non-aligned. That was the safest. Where we achieve, we look at the West, the East, the South. By the way, South-South cooperation is also a very important plank. In addition to what I said about in 1945, at the end of the Second World War, countries of the world, mainly third world countries, met at the city of Bandung in Indonesia. And that was the birthplace of the non-aligned movement. Those people, like that time, we owed Yugoslavia, Ambrose Tito, Abdul Nasser, and India's Nehru, and eventually Mahatma Gandhi, and in Africa, people like even Kenyatta himself, and of course the leader in Ghana at that time, Kwame Nkrumah. These are people who thought, how do we position our countries? Of course now, because of economic diplomacy, I can tell you, nobody can ignore that there are two big economies now, the Chinese and the Americans. So how you relate to that? And during our time with President Kibaki, we went for infrastructure, for example, building of infrastructure, because I think we got it wrong soon after independence. The Chinese believe if you want to really build the economy, start by building 1 kilometer of road. Now that's a story for another day. But for now, I want to tell you, Ainea, when the embassies issued an advisory, not an advisory, a note verbal, as you call it, they were doing what is traditional. I started by telling you that when it comes to human rights, they are universal. Abuse of human rights in Kenya is abuse of human rights anywhere. That's why they came out. And by the way, during my time as foreign minister, we would listen to people like Smith Emston, the American ambassador at that time, who was outspoken. Some Kenyans called him Nyamachoma ambassador, okay? And others came after him. Edward Clay of the UK, remember, in the fight against corruption? These Anglo-leasing deals and others. He came out and said, hey, you have eaten our money and vomited on our shoes. So it is traditional between friends, because diplomacy stresses the fact that no country is an island. But so you cannot plead the breach of Vienna Convention anymore. Oh, no, no, no.
Right, but if I may remind you, during that particular time with Ambassador Smith Hemston by then, also you were against reforms. Like the multi-party democracy. When you in the Kanu regime,
some people,
you are the one who moved the motion, and of course you are castigating.
What motion?
Of changing the article.
No, I was a master of ceremony at Kasarani when we decided to amend Article 2 and to get to a 2A of the Kenyan Constitution to allow for multi-party democracy.
Weren't you the one who was moving the motion?
No, I wasn't leader. I was just a deputy speaker, my friend, that time. Okay, but the leaders of the leader of business, house business. I can't remember, Vice President, maybe Karanja, right?
Joseph Karanja.
Yes, Karanja. They moved the motion, and we were overwhelming because unlike William Ruto, Moi was able that time to listen to what the country was saying. Okay? And he gave way. Remember the very peaceful handover to Kibaki. Very few heads of state, and people don't give credit where it is due. Moi handed over in a very democratic manner to President Mwai Kibaki. So that was orderly. But this approach now by William Ruto is really draconian.
Right.
But we'll deal with it because it's too late even for William Ruto. Constitution 2010 is our shield and our defender. So just like we say, justice be our shield and defender. And this is why I'm very proud that we enacted Constitution 2010.
So he thinks actually that you're being unfair to him. He's wondering why aren't you raising the cacophony and all these ruckus regarding the presidency of Mwai Kibaki, of which you are the vice president.
Oh,
the presidency
there's a clip circulating, where William Ruto is telling,
this is what telling
country, whether you like it or not, Kibaki, you are leaving. You must leave.
An old clip, yes.
Double standards. Double standards.
Isn't that
But the good thing is, these days you record everything. And even then it was recorded. So the truth, once the truth is known and established, people know nobody has any personal problem. I personally have no problem with William Ruto, okay? Absolutely no problem. But I have a problem with the way is running the affairs of our republic. And that is, of course, my democratic right as well, and my democratic right to say, William Ruto, you will face you at the next ballot. And believe you me, because it seems to be getting worse by the day, he has lost the confidence of the Kenyan people. The other day he asked, what do you people, you're saying Ruto must go one term, what are you expecting me to do? He has the option of resigning, and then he'll become a statesman. And then that is one way. If you feel that you have lost the confidence of your people, because authority is derived from the people. Article 1 of the Kenyan Constitution, that's what the Gen Zs, I think I'm shown one T-shirt I was wearing, written that the only weapon these young people had is Article 1 of the Kenyan Constitution.
We the people.
We the people.
All right, so
the sovereignty belongs to the people.
Okay.
If then the people have told you we have lost confidence in you, nothing personal, one can resign.
Right. Let me just move on a bit.
Or be impeached, as the case may be.
I want us to talk about the goons, because this is a concern for foreign diplomats and the intervention. Don't you think it shows how serious and visible this situation has become beyond the Kenyan borders, as you mentioned? Because if we are giving a spawning ground for the mushrooming again of Mungiki and Chinkororo and all these other illegal militias in this country, and we're trying to make them to be institutionalized. If they have the support of the government, that this is statecraft that is sponsoring these goons, what sort of a country are we creating? Because we must be having this morbid fear of seeing people carrying machetes and batons.
We must say
weapons.
We must say collectively no to the new spectre, the new norm of Goonism. On the 4th of this month, today is the 9th. On the 4th, we were on a trail as united opposition. Actually, on the 3rd, we started from Luanda in Vihiga County, went through Mbale, and we could not easily access Kakamega because some goons had been organized to make sure we don't enter Kakamega town. But the police there were a little civil. They disrupted, they dispersed the people, the goons were organized. But then, and of course, we had occasion to call out those people who showed such high level of intolerance. But the following day, we had a beautiful move from Butula in Busia County through Bungoma. I've been to Bungoma many times, but the mood I saw in Bungoma this time, I mean, amazing, electrifying. That must have sent a signal to people who believe they are losing power, so that when we are now going to Kabuchai, I think it is constituency, Chwele, the hometown of Weta, we found a military type of Goonism. They were arranged in 3 layers. Layer number 1, we were able to drive through. And layer number 2, they started throwing stones and all manner of crude weapons. And then layer number 3, after that, the police, which means the police were acting in concert with the goons. The goons were protected by the police. And we had given adequate notice that we are coming to Chwele. Now, that is an example of how lawlessness can take over. Goonism has actually taken over. But I can tell you, the country will not take it. The country will not take it. I have no doubt in my mind as I speak to you, Ainea, that those people who went and I had to call a very able businessman in Mwea today to tell him Pole. Yeah, he's actually called Bwana Mkombozi because he has really changed the economy of Mwea town, right? Goons went into a shop, cleared everything, and In his case, he understands. He understands. He seems to know who they are. The goons are very well known. So for anybody to pretend that it is the work of united opposition really must be ashamed, even before God, that this is state-sponsored. And the good thing is, even people in parts of Kirinyaga and other places, we saw people we have never seen coming here. People transported from elsewhere to go and burn properties and make it look like it is agencies. And these young people, we all know, so they are the most peaceful. They don't want anything associated with the violence. That's what they are fighting against.
So what do we do when we are caught up in this bind where the state is a criminal enterprise?
Yeah.
You as opposition then, what is the way forward? How can we get out from this deadlock?
I take you back to the commission, the Restorative Justice Commission. We will hold everybody to account. We will. We will, I can assure you. It's a very serious agenda we have, and we are collecting all this evidence.
But we're talking about amorphous people who have no labels, even from... Yeah.
Hey, by the way, there's one group which impressed me. I saw, and that's how militias come up. I saw another group in the city here, because one time Murkomen went around before the 25th, before Saba Saba, I think 25th, on the 25th. He went around to assure people, don't close your shops, there's enough security, blah, blah, blah. What happened was mayhem again. The goons, and I talked about that openly, that these goons were assembling outside City Hall. They were paid 1,000 to that. Some of them confessed to the amount of money they were receiving. Then they are given weapons, crude weapons, clubs and nyonyos, that kind of thing. And they didn't protect the property of the business community. On Saba Saba, now during Saba Saba, they got themselves together, they bought ribbons, right? Because I remember their spokesman said, we don't trust anybody. We don't trust anybody. All we want is to protect our properties, and therefore we have bought these items of identification. At least they're trying to do something. That tells you the police are heavily compromised. So nobody has confidence in them.
We are on our own.
We're on our own. So that is basically that group was saying, we're on our own, we'll protect ourselves.
Eye-popping figures that we spent on police reforms. Recently, Maraga Task Force. I mean, you go through the lines and you can see that nothing is really working. Changing even
the only way
from the police force to a service until now. We've been batting our heads on the wall.
You don't want to preach to stones, right? The only way is to mobilize Kenyans to throw away this government in a democratic manner. That's all we are saying. And the only thing I can assure them, if they come and steal the next election, believe you me, Kenyans will stop at nothing. They will get them out of State House. So they really better take note of that. So the next election is not going to be a normal election. It is going to be a change election. What Kenyans have missed all the time, the nearest we came to a democratic election was in 2002, when we said Kibaki Tosha, okay? I was part of that. I was leading one group, okay? That was the Rainbow Group, and Raila was there, Saitoti, Mudi Awori, we were in there. And we had proper elections. William Ruto was man enough to say, I concede. We want to tell Ruto in advance, he will have to concede. Stop the nonsense of people like Shudi saying, going someplace and saying, we will, tutaongeza kura. It will not happen. They will never, Kenyans will not allow that to happen. By the time wataongozwa wasema ongeze hiyo kura, watakuwa thrown out very far.
So you're still relying on the
That will be now the revolution which they cannot stop. At that point, I think Kenyans will be prepared to die in mass and throw them out.
All right.
So this is the seriousness of the situation.
Since we're living in a very different topic of time, we're talking about artificial intelligence, and here we are still struggling with upgrading the software of Kim's system. Some of it now have become redundant. Why can't you as opposition try and push the envelope to steamroll now the inculcation of blockchain technology?
Indeed.
Why can't we, are we too late?
We are not too late.
Yes.
By the way,
can you?
I can tell you, somebody sent me a very clear message that Camargo Camargo was in town this last week. He was escorted nicely to the airport. That was the day the Secretariat of Iebc tried to say they are migrating data. Remember? Our people are macho.
So Camargo is not a phantom figure, as it was
No,
alluded to.
apparently it's a real figure. Somebody told Camargo was in State House after all that. And he was escorted out. Okay? This is not confirmed, but I can tell you, very, very, very serious sources who are actually able to see all that.
That's very telling.
So that thing, it is not a phantom name, Camargo. And thinking about it, I wonder what Raila will be doing with this administration. Yeah.
Do you think Raila will bolt out?
I don't know. It's up to him. I really don't know.
You feel betrayed as opposition by him?
No. Betrayal is something we have learned to live with. But some of us remain solid in our resolve to leave behind a democratic, a constitutional democracy for which we have fought, and so many of our people have lost their lives over the years.
You seem to have lost Raila to figure out who he is right now. Do you think he's suffering from a cognitive dissonance?
I don't know. I really don't know. You should ask him. But however, he's my friend.
But from your own observation?
He's my friend, but I think our history, because I've spent so much time with him.
You know,
so much time.
I can't just ask him, are you suffering from cognitive dissonance? You know, they always say you cannot see the picture if you're in the frame. You have to step out of the frame, and you are out of the frame, you could see.
I've stepped out of the frame, for sure. Stepped out of that frame. I was called names there. Oh my goodness. I'm a new person, determined to liberate our country.
What is your conviction?
I believe it's a calling. It's a calling. When I went first to Parliament at a very young age, at 30, I ran in first time at age 30. So I encourage the young people to take up space. From out there, nobody knows where Sekuru is. I think a few people now get to know. Unless it's a calling, you can't manage. You go through plenty, so much. You see so much corruption, you see so much. And the good Lord has enabled me to watch and not be a partaker. So that perchance I can tell the country this is the way to go.
Tell me about, you still run the farm, Musyoka and Wambua? Or is
No,
still
the name changes now, Musyoka Morambi.
Musyoka Morambi?
Yeah, we are not supposed to advertise as lawyers. So don't make me commit a professional...
No, I just wanted to know where did the Wambua disappear?
Oh, he started his own farm. He's actually chancellor of some university somewhere. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Now I have Albert Morambi and several able young lawyers. Very able. A medium-sized law firm. Yeah, and again, we're not supposed to advertise.
But you've just advertised.
No. Yeah.
So
I've
in
not
your
told you
capacity,
where we are.
No, it was good to see you as a court officer. Or today, yesterday, it was so refreshing, and we could see a lot of you coming out. Justice Maragra as well, trying to go back to.
We're trying to do something.
You're trying to do
We're trying
something.
to say our judiciary is the last hope. Yeah, the last frontier. We can't allow everything else state captured. National Assembly, state capture, the Senate, and all. Yeah. So, although, as I said, given the opportunity, a lot of these legislators may want to redeem their image through impeachment of some high characters. But that is not our mission for now.
Right.
Our mission is to make sure this country stands as a constitutional democracy, and we are determined to play our role.
Right. We want to bring this to a close, and
Yes.
I have it on good authority that you and Eugene Wamalwa, you'll pair up. You will be the presidential candidate, and Eugene Wamalwa will be the deputy president, so to speak. I just want to ask you, is that really up your collective sleeves? Because the initial idea was also to maybe rope in the governor of Trans Nzoia, of the Tao movement.
Which we did. I think we did.
Of the Tao movement. Yeah, but he's been casing the joint, so to speak. He's been, you know, biding his time, thinking about it, and he thinks maybe he should run or rerun for the governorship. So is that in the pipeline?
I can tell you one thing with certainty. We do not as yet have a presidential candidate. We do not have a presidential running mate. We are building united opposition. And at the opportune time, we will give this country a presidential candidate and a running mate, and there is enough space for all of us. The reformists, people who want to change this country for good, I'm sure we'll stick together. You have heard of other colleagues.
So there has been no conversation like that?
No, we haven't. We haven't discussed, but I can tell you that Eugene has stuck with me. We started even before Fred Matiang'i flew in and other people. This Western tour, by the way, brought together everybody. Matiang'i was on board, Natembeya was on board, and it was beautiful to see the DAP team, Democratic Action Party team of Natembeya and Eugene Wamalo. Amazing.
All right.
Of course, Eugene is a party leader, and Governor Trans Nzoia is a deputy.
Wiper Patriotic Front. Why change of name?
Because we wanted to capture the spirit of the young Kenyans who are saying it's not just enough to use the word democratic. It's tired, it's been overused. So we want the oomph, the patriotism. That is the spirit we captured of the young Kenyans, the Gen Zs, not necessarily saying they cannot join us, but they're free. We want to end up with come up with a political movement which is all-inclusive, which is going to take into account the youth of this country, the patriotism, the vigor. It's not going to be no more movement democracy. No, we are going for patriotism. Therefore, it's a front, because we are in a fighting mood right now to safeguard our democracy. We will be rebranding, of course. We'll get the name and even the slogan, Komboa Kenya. And around the month of September, we'll be having, September before October, our delegates conference, so that we can also come up with the new leadership of the movement, right? People like Farah Maalim left us when they say they can kill 5,000 Gen Zs. We had to tell him, please, stay out. Yeah?
He was a vice party leader.
He was a deputy leader.
Deputy leader.
Yeah. So we're rebranding, we are refashioning, and of course we'll also have to operate, take into account our coalition partners.
Okay.
Yeah.
As we're winding up, you talked about the foreign policy that is in shambles. You again, as a former minister of Foreign Affairs, you once championed Kenya's image as a neutral peace broker in the region. You've talked about NATO and the non-alignment policy there. Then how do you respond to the Bellingcat revelations that they actually did an expose with the Daily Nation?
What are those again?
It's a research firm.
A research firm?
Yes,
okay.
that Kenyan labeled ammunition was found in RSF's hands in Sudan, which is a clear contradiction to our stated neutrality. Would you agree that such allegations, whether by commission or omission, signal a dangerous erosion of our diplomatic credibility?
Indeed, and also falls squarely within the framework of ICC statute.
Indeed.
I'll tell you why. Charles Taylor, former president of Liberia, was found guilty before the International Criminal Court for acts of war and interference with what was happening in Senegal. A group called ROOF used to cut people's limbs and things.
So that they can't vote. Yes.
Yeah, they can't vote. So he was found culpable, he was found guilty and sentenced. I'm not even trying to imply anything, but the matter is so serious that Kenya's taxpayers' money, which buys ammunition and things, cannot be seen to be used for warlike activities in a neighboring country, an IGAD member country. Our position has been that of non-interference in the affairs of other countries in the region. That's why we were trusted over years. That's how I was able to preach peace and get people, knock people together. I can tell you at our residence here, one time I got President Abdullah Yusuf of Somalia and the Prime Minister at that time called Abdul Qassam Salad. I think he's still alive in Egypt. We got them here, we got them through the Baghdadi peace process. I even declared myself a member of a clan called Digli Mirifli in Somalia. The Somalis trusted us. And in fact, one time when I was moved from the Somali peace process, I remember that they met in Gigiri and all shouted, saying, why should the Kalonzo have been replaced by John Koech that time? Yeah? It's when I was moved from Minister of Foreign Affairs to Environment by Kibaki. And we worked. Everybody knows the role we have played, not everybody, a lot of people know the role we have played in making sure that Southern Sudan comes out as the world's newest state. We did a comprehensive peace agreement in Nairobi because they could trust this country, until which led then to a referendum establishing the new state. The amount of work we did to convince President Bashir that time, with the help of President Bouteflika, the then president of Algeria, to help me as a negotiator to convince al-Bashir to allow John Garang of South Sudan, was the leader then, the founder actually, because John Garang used to say, please don't kill my thieves. I want them with their arms because of Sharia law. The fact that Bouteflika convinced al-Bashir to say Khartoum during the currency of the interim arrangements was going to remain Sharia free. That's what gave now a breakthrough. Apart from getting, of course, Garang to sit with the Vice President of Bashir here, and the peace process that took place in Naivasha, we called it our Camp David. I remember the Secretary of State of the U.S. and Collins, the late Colin, and others, the Norwegians, the world came to work with us to deliver a new country, the world's newest state. That was because Kenya was seen to be a country that is neutral in the region, the anchor nation, not just economically, but diplomatically. All that is lost. When I got Kofi Annan to come and declare Nairobi a UN headquarters, and he actually flew all the way to come, and then I'd been moved to Minister of Education, and at the airport, he calls me aside and said, Minister, I have fulfilled my promise. I was so honored. These are some of the things Kenyans may never know. Because as a result of that, Gigiri now, the UN headquarters, Nairobi is at the same level as Geneva, New York, and Switzerland. And Zurich, Switzerland, I beg your pardon. So, these are some of the things we have done for our country. And we are proud. But we are seeing this administration trying to work in derogation of all those gains. Today, I saw the Director General of the United Nations offices here, a lady from West Africa, and she told me in the next 2-3 years, Nairobi will be able to hold even a General Assembly because they're building capacity. What that means is hotels in Nairobi will continue to grow, right? And that's why we want to settle this economy, for it to grow. But we cannot leave it to the goons because the goons will destroy it.
All right. So how do we restore the credibility of our diplomacy in the region? Because we become a laughingstock from Tanzania, the region, what is happening in DRC as well. We become a laughingstock.
I did a lot of work
from
in the
grace
DRC.
to where we were.
Yes, from
as I
grace
say, to grass.
To grass. It is salvageable, and the only way to do it is to change this administration. They have lost it.
So we twiddle our thumbs and wait for the administration to
I'm
exit?
afraid another 2 years is not too much of a wait, maximum. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you electing to converse with us and tell the nation what is the current state of play if we do have a leadership crisis. But even as we're winding up, I just want you to look to your camera and to just try and calm the nerves of Kenyans, which are very afraid right now. The anger is palpable.
Yeah.
The children, are fearful. Parents as well, they are uncertain. The economy is going to the dogs. As a country, how then can we get back that particular needle just to move it a jot higher to the true north where it should be?
It's going to take true patriotism, true commitment. I understand the pain we're all going through as a nation, but as the famous Jesse Jackson famously said, keep hope alive, Kenya. Keep hope alive. We will do the best we can to see whether we can save the lives of young people from being shortcut by police bullets, the suffering by tear gassing. President Ruto seems to highly praise the water cannons, may be carrying and pouring poisonous stuff on Kenyans, you never know. But it's going to be the country shall be proud of. And I'm personally very proud of the Gen Z generation. They have become the conscience of this country. And we must give them space and encouragement. Let them take out their identity cards, number one, and be facilitated to do so, and then register en masse as voters. Our weapon is our Constitution 2010 and our vote.
Right. Your Excellency, thank you for the rich repository of knowledge and the trenchant insight you've given us here. All the insight we really do appreciate. And we're looking forward also for the rebranding of the Wiper Party, the Wiper Patriotic Front. We really do appreciate. And of course, we've been speaking with the party leader of Wiper Patriotic Front. This is His Excellency Stephen Kalonzo Musyoka here at the Stephen Kalonzo Musyoka Command Center. And he's just reminded you that we still have a country. Keep hope alive. And we know sometimes hope deferred makes the heart sick. You might have had that particular optimism, expectation from the current administration that has actually fallen short of what you actually anticipated. But we always keep hope alive. And as we always say here, in all things, in essentials, unity, in unessentials, liberty, in all things, charity. Let us coalesce around what is essential. We really do appreciate. Thank you for joining us here on The Insight. Have a restorative night.